everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at the first 3 volumes of Shuzo Oshimi's Welcome Back, Alice. I was really excited to find this book, see that it's currently coming out. I've become a huge fan of Shuzo Oshimi's work because of his manga Blood on the Tracks, which is also still being released in the English translation that hasn't finished. And then I saw that this was coming out concurrently when I watched the Manbin episode with Shuzo Oshimi, and he was talking about working on both books, which is really impressive because they're similar but also very different. Like in art approach is pretty different, even though there's commonalities between them. That episode's really awesome. I'm really excited to see that Naoki Urasawa is still making Manbin episodes, making new ones. I didn't know that was happening, so when I found the Shuzo Oshimi one, I was elated, and I had to run out and get this. And I know Oshimi has a bunch of older works, Happiness and Flowers of Evil and stuff that I don't have yet, but I'll get to them eventually. So I had to get this, and I wound up really enjoying it. It's very different, but also there's commonalities that I think, based on that Manbin episode, are similar throughout all of his work, where he seems very interested in predatory women almost. There's the mother in Blood on the Tracks, and then in this we have a character who is born a male, but I don't want to say it's trans either. Seems more like non-binary or something. It's not exactly saying they're a girl, but dresses like a girl and stuff, but also saying I'm not a boy. But that character you'll see has a kind of predatory aspect to it, which feels like some of the other feels like the other work that I've read by Oshimi. So this is going to be a spoilery review because that's what the kind of turning points in the story are what make it interesting. So apologies, warning ahead of time. The story starts out like in grade school or early middle school, where you have this character, the main character, I guess, Yo, and then his crush, Mitani, this girl that he has a crush on. And then there's the third character in the triangle, K, which is this character here, who's just like this really good-looking, popular kid. And they're all kind of friends, and K seems to be really interested in Yo. And Yo's interested in Mitani, but Kei has this like strategy of ingratiated himself to Yo, which is like just, I'm gonna teach you about sex stuff to help you get with Mitani, and that starts to create a connection between Yo and Key, which is like awkward and weird and interesting. Like here, it's just asking each other. Kay's asking Yo, like, do you masturbate? Oh yeah. Like, well, how do you do it? And they're talking about like their techniques. And I mean, you're 15 pages into this manga that starts out just looking like this super. I know a lot of manga like boys love, gets sexual pretty quick, but it seems so innocent, and then very quickly turns perverse. And there's like a perverse darkness to the Oshimi stuff that I've read that I find really compelling. He seems to really be willing to not edit himself, and talks about that in the Manbin episode as well, that is kind of like an ethic of his in his work, and it works really well. It makes really compelling work, and it's just another one of those in the series of Japanese comics that I feel are just they're doing drama in a way that I wish I saw more in American comics. They're like just straight drama, and they can really make you care about the characters. One thing that I just absolutely love about Oshimi's work is he can communicate to me so much with his faces, but they're also like very dead. Oftentimes the characters have these dead eyes, but he's able to communicate like just so much about emotions with his faces, and it feels so natural. Like here, Yo is seeing Kei and Mitani kissing, and this like moment of disappointment almost, but also a challenge, Like there's just a real, it's such a deadpan expression, but within the context of the story, it carries so much information, and it's such a rich expression. You know, it's not just a one, like communicating one emotion, and man, it just constantly impresses me. And then the story does a time jump to where now they're in high school, so it's a few years later, and Kei had moved away, and so it's just Yo and Matani, and nothing really happened with them. And they come back to high school, and Kei's like, okay, I'm going to like get with Matani, like that's gonna happen now that I'm in high school. And then, or sorry, Yo is gonna get with Matani, and then Kei shows back up and is now dressing and presenting himself as a girl, and doesn't seem to be, like I said, doesn't seem to be like trans in the way that we would think about it. It seems more gender non-binary. There's not any switching of pronouns, or I don't know, not any real proclamations that I'm a girl. It's just that I'm not a boy. So shows up and is like, hey, you know, it's like trying to be cute and seductive immediately, and Yo is like, who's this hot girl talking to me, and has that kind of sense of familiarity in their interaction. Like, you know, she's so pretty, but like, I don't know, have we met before? This is strange. She seems to know me. And then Kay's like references back to their conversation about masturbation, and it like clicks in, like, oh my god, I know who you are. So then there's just like this love triangle going, and you'll see like here, you know, I'll teach you stuff way more intense than masturbation, and like flirting and trying to get with Yo, but at the same time using like, hey, you know, let me help you get with Matani as a way of seducing him. And so it has this weird predatory aspect to it that seems to be an interest in Oshimi's work. These kind of predatory women. I don't know. It's an interesting vibe that he creates, and then these are particularly unsettling because he has afterwards that are like these really painfully vulnerable like admissions, or kind of talks about his own sexuality, his lack of sex drive, his kind of unsure about his own, you know, gender, or like what it means to be a man, you know, that he can't live up to being a man, you're a failure as a man. So it seems like this story is like a really, really honest attempt. He says the task is to examine, confront, and deconstruct one's sex drive and masculinity. I hope to make some headway on that in the course of this work. So I like that because the work, there's nothing in it that feels preachy. It feels very much like someone just working something through, that they're exploring a theme and working something through. And I think with especially things that are like hot button philosophical or political topics right now, works that really explore the theme of it are more interesting to me than the works that kind of have a fixed point of view about it. And to have someone that's putting their own insecurities on the line in the work while they explore the theme is just really, really compelling to read, and really refreshing. So, I mean, once you get the setup, it's those three characters in a love triangle. There's, you know, not much more to talk about other than just going and showing some moments that I like, or some art I like. In volume 2, I really like this scene where they go to a karaoke bar just to get some time. Yo and Matani, they get some time together to talk and kind of go on their first date. And it's just so much of this time spent silent on the expressions and the little weird lighting effects. And again, these expressions that carry a multiplicity of meaning that really capture like the complexity of what's going on in the characters' heads. It's just so fascinating. It's not as intense as in Blood on the Tracks, but this story requires a little bit more understated emotional themes. You know, it's not so abusive and over the top as Blood on the Tracks. And then this sequence here where they're walking home, you know, and they're flirting with holding hands, and the sweat and the excitement and the terror and the fear. of him getting to hold her hand for the first time and her being shy about it and her not being sure about how she feels about him. And it's just all really wrapped up in that moment. And again, the thing I keep talking about with manga, the decompression that I'm just falling more and more in love with and thinking about more and more for my work, how to handle compressed versus decompressed stuff. Um, I think in an American comic, this would maybe be a page or two at most, but stretching it out to be like just the walk home is almost a whole chapter. I think that's more emotionally honest. Like in that moment, like every little thing matters, and time would slow down and your attention would be just super ramped up. And so that decompressed nature of that really feels accurate to me. That we would be seeing every little moment. And here you get another like really kind of creepy predatory moment where Yo comes home and Kay's just doing there like, hey, I'm just catching up with your mom. And it's like, I'm all innocent and cute and flirty, but behind it there's kind of these other intentions. And then eventually they go hang out in Yo's room, and that's where Kay is like basically molests him, saying, well, let me teach you about sex so that you're ready to go when you finally hook up with Matani. And obviously that's gonna like put a strain on Yo's relationship with Matani, and he's having a sexual experience, with this other person, and so he's questioning his own tastes and his own sexuality, and it's just all handled really, really well and intense. Another big turning point that I thought was like really well done is Yo has promised he's promised Matani not to talk to Kay, and that's it's a whole own weird scene that I just suggest go reading it. But here sees Kay getting harassed by, a guy who's being abusive, because it's like, why are you dressed up like a girl, and steps up, and they have a moment together where it just scares the guy off, and then that comes back like, obviously Matani hears about it and it causes problems. And so I love this drawing as well. She's heard about it and he explains what's going on, and just that drawing of her giving him the cold shoulder is so cold, and her look, it's fine, but like I don't know, it's just the way, I don't know how he does it, maybe it's just the context, but it reads as such a cold shoulder. He just really has an eye for that emotional stuff. And this right here, I really like the effect of he's going in, and she's like, okay, like I better have sex with this guy to make sure he doesn't go off with this other person. And so he's like walking in to have sex with this girl that he's been dreaming about having sex with since they were very young. And this isn't something that Oshimi does a lot in art that I've seen yet, but putting this like curved perspective on it just adds a whole like dizziness to the scene that's, and a kind of fear to the scene that's entirely appropriate. So it's just those type of choices all throughout his work that just blow me away. It's just so good at conveying the emotional states. And then in all of the volumes, there's always an afterwards. And this one here was particularly interesting to me. And again, like just really, really vulnerable, talking about, just masturbating so much as a third grader that he got a bruise on the tip of his dick that was like he thought it was a bruise, but I guess it never went away, and so it's just a mole now. And I just like putting that out there, while you're talking about your own sexuality, that this is the kind of thing where it's like you're not talking about the general stuff. By going so specific, you somehow speak more universally. I feel like when a lot of people do diary comics, it's kind of the universal, like, yeah, you're a lonely comic artist, or I don't know, there's just these kind of repeat themes. And this avoids that for me by being so specific and so vulnerable that it becomes more universal and more accessible, I think, to me at least. And just talking about self-loathing, like, is this a disease Well, girls freak out if they see a mole. I like that it's got a little face, so it looks like a little goatee on there. And then just this drawing of himself is like his self perception of filthy, disgusting, pimple ridden, oily haired body. It's just really, really like a sad, and comparing himself kind of to his dick. It's really sad, but really affecting and impactful. So I'm absolutely sold on Shuzo Oshimi as an artist worth reading all of his stuff. After this and Blood on the Tracks, there's a through line between them, but they're also very different and unique in their own way. This like kind of problem he has with his sexuality or with women or something is very compelling. These kind of predatory, dangerous women. I find it to be interesting. I feel like an American artist wouldn't even ever touch on that or couldn't get away with it. So I don't know. It's different. It's exotic in the sense that it's something I haven't really been exposed to before in comics, and I'm sold on him as an artist. And I'll definitely be getting all of the other books I can as I can, and any new stuff that comes out I'll definitely be buying. So definitely recommend these. I know based on the covers they don't look like something that I would normally pick up. They look like standard, and I don't know why it's called Welcome Back Alice. Like the character Kay doesn't come back and change his name to Alice, so I don't know what that's about. But don't let the covers fool you. Don't let the style fool you. These are really mature, sophisticated dramas. And yeah, I couldn't recommend them more. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, the best way to support us is to get the books that Sean has put out and has coming out through Living the Line. We also have Patreon, which is always appreciated and helpful when people do that. But the real goal here is to make better books and sell great books and expose people to good artists. So here's some books that you can check out from Living the Line. There's also Yokoyama Yuichi's Plaza, which is a totally intense manga by an artist who has somehow figured out how to distill manga down to its purest essence. This book was successfully funded on Kickstarter, but if you missed the Kickstarter, you can order it through any comic store, any bookstore, Amazon, any place that you would normally get your graphic novels from. Eric Creek's The Exile, which has been described by the artist as his Viking Western. It's a really intense story of revenge, rendered with this beautiful pen and ink style, and then these couple of spot colors that were also done in layers on ink and then converted into color. So that's just a really, really beautiful book, and a really intense story. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.